looking everywhere, that's how the story goes. Grab your key.
What if the fall of Rome was not written by history, but by horror? Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, where untold secrets come alive. In this spine-chilling saga, we travel back to the height of the Roman Empire, a world of glittering palaces, forbidden love, lavish feasts, and blood-soaked arenas. Here, emperors ruled with iron, gladiators fought for glory, and noble women cloaked their passions in silks and jewels. But beneath the glamour and desire, something darker stirred, a plague of the dead that would rise to consume the greatest empire the world had ever known. This is more than just zombies. It's a tale of love, betrayal, and forbidden lust. 5 beautiful, bold women, tangled with soldiers, princes, and witches, must face not only their own desires, but the nightmare clawing at Rome's gates. Secret conspiracies, political power struggles, and Gothic sorcery twist together until love itself becomes a weapon. But beware, nothing is as it seems. The witches promise salvation, the prince seeks power, and every kiss may lead to death. And when the final twist comes, it will shatter everything you thought you knew about Rome and about the living dead. If you're ready for a journey of passion and terror, subscribe now to the Zombie Story Zone. Comment below, would you fight for love or power if the dead walked again?
No, join the hunt, uncover the fight in the Zombie Story Zone. We'll survive the night.
Chapter 1. The Golden Banquet of Rome. Rome glittered that night as though the gods themselves had descended to feast. Inside Emperor Tiberius's palace, golden torches burned against towering marble columns, their light rippling over mosaics of conquest and victory. Musicians plucked strings while slaves hurried with jeweled goblets brimming with wine, the air thick with perfume from gardens of roses and lilies, mingling with the scent of roasted meats and honeyed fruits. The women moved like flame and silk through the gathering, their gowns cut daringly, their jewels glimmering like stolen stars. Valeria Sabina, infamous for her beauty and bolder still for her wit, danced slowly in the circle of music, her laughter drawing men like moths to fire. Livia Drusilla, niece of the emperor, whispered dangerous promises into the ear of Senator Gaius Julius Severus, her painted lips curving with ambition sharper than any blade. Claudia Severina, veiled and mysterious, leaned close to General Marcus Aelius, her touch feather-light but filled with unspoken power. Men boasted of victories, handsome generals, rugged gladiators, senators fat with pride, but it was the women who truly commanded the hall, weaving desire into politics, spinning whispers into snares. Laughter echoed like thunder, yet beneath the revelry stirred darker murmurs. Reports of a sickness in the provinces, peasants collapsing only to rise again, passed like shadows between goblets of wine. Most laughed them off, dismissing such tales as superstition. But Marcus, watching the emperor's tightened jaw, felt unease stirring beneath the golden splendor. Still, the night belonged to desire. Wine spilled, silk shifted, and Rome seemed eternal in its glittering arrogance. Yet even as the banquet roared on, far from the marble halls, another world awaited. A village where olive trees bent under moonlight, waterfalls sang against stone, and 3 radiant girls dreamed of love beneath the stars. None could know that the choices born in that quiet village would entwine with Rome's fate itself, carrying with them not just passion and desire, but the first faint shadow of ruin. Chapter 2. The Village of Blossoms. Far from Rome's marble and gold lay a village wrapped in quiet beauty. Olive trees swayed in the wind, gardens overflowed with lavender and figs, and waterfalls tumbled over stone cliffs into clear pools where villagers bathed in the summer heat. Life was simple here, measured in music at dusk, laughter in the fields, and whispered secrets beneath starlit skies. Among its people lived 3 young women whose beauty and boldness made them the heart of every gathering. Celine, with sapphire eyes and a gentleness that masked daring curiosity, sang by the stream as children gathered to listen. Lyra, wild and playful, laughed louder than anyone, teasing men and women alike with a touch of her hand or the daring tilt of her smile. Cassia, proud and elegant, moved with the grace of a queen, though she wore only linen and flowers in her hair. One evening, a stranger arrived, dusty from the road, his cloak plain, yet his bearing betrayed him. Prince Lucius Antonius wandering in disguise. To Selene, he offered tender words as they walked by the river. To Lyra, he gave daring smiles that promised mischief. To Cassia, he spoke of destiny, his voice heavy with admiration. But love was not so simple. Lyra, bold as fire, let her hand linger too long on Cassia's as they bathed beneath the waterfall. Selene found her heart quickening at the glance of a traveling gladiator passing through. And even the village women laughed too brightly when Lucius's eyes fell on them, their husbands pretending not to notice. Desire, like the blossoms that filled the gardens, seemed to grow wild and unchecked. Yet shadows stirred in the hills. A goat was found torn open at dawn, and shepherds whispered of pale figures drifting among the cypress trees. Still, the village feasted, sang, and kissed beneath the stars, never guessing that their nights of passion were already entwining with something far darker. For love was leading them toward Rome, and with Rome came the shadow waiting to devour them all. Chapter 3. When the Roses Turn Black. The road to Rome shimmered like a promise. For Selene, Lyra, and Cassia, leaving their village felt like stepping into a dream woven from marble and gold. The city greeted them with music and fire, its streets crowded with merchants, its air thick with spice and wine. Within the palace walls, their simple linen dresses were replaced with silks dyed crimson and emerald, their hair crowned with jewels that caught every flicker of torchlight. By day, they walked with Prince Lucius Antonius through sprawling gardens where fountains whispered and statues watched silently. To Selene, he offered poetry, soft words of eternal devotion. With Lyra, he laughed recklessly, chasing her through the groves as though he were no prince at all. To Cassia, he gave his silence, his gaze heavy with the weight of unspoken longing. But the palace was a web of more than love. Valeria Sabina, draped in sapphire silk, eyed the village girls with scorn, though her smile toward Lucius was honey-sweet. Claudia Severina, mysterious and veiled, sought Cassia's company at night, whispering strange tales of power and shadows as her fingers traced idle circles against Cassia's palm. Even General Marcus Aelius found himself captivated by Selene's innocence, lingering too long when their hands brushed during a feast. Desire danced everywhere. In the halls, in the gardens, in stolen glances that no one dared admit. Yet amid the glitter, something darker stirred. In the emperor's private rose garden, blooms that had always opened red were found black and brittle at dawn. A slave collapsed in the marketplace, twitching, his eyes vacant and glassy. And when his body stilled, he rose again to screams. Servants whispered of voices in the tombs at night, and the sound of scratching from within the stone. The girls clung to their loves, their jealousies, their whispered secrets, refusing to see what Rome itself already feared. For in the heart of all their longing, something ancient and hungry had awoken, and the empire's marble could not hide its first cracks. Chapter 4. The plague spreads. Rome did not sleep. The nights were alive with torchlight, laughter, and the endless echo of revelry spilling from the palaces and taverns. Banquets swelled with dancers draped in pearls, goblets of spiced wine, and whispered promises traded beneath silk canopies. But even as the city glittered, unease pressed against its walls. The three village girls, now dressed as jewels of the court, were no longer innocent dreamers. Selene, radiant in emerald, clung to Prince Lucius with tender devotion, though her eyes wandered to Marcus Aelius, whose soldiers' hands lingered on hers longer than was proper. Lyra, reckless in crimson silk, laughed too loudly, kissed too boldly, and whispered into Cassia's ear when no one was watching. Cassia, proud and elegant, let her heart divide between Lucius and the enigmatic Claudia Severina, who drew her deeper each night into strange conversations about power, eternity, and the gods who refused to die. The court gossiped, envious and scandalized, but passion burned too brightly to be hidden. Still, shadows were growing longer. In the forum, a senator's slave collapsed during a speech and rose again moments later, eyes white and jaw slack, tearing into his master's throat before the crowd. Panic scattered the streets. In the morgue, bodies went missing from their slabs. Shepherds brought tales of entire flocks devoured, leaving only bones glistening under the moon. Yet the emperor's advisors urged silence. Panic weakens empires, they insisted, and the games must go on. And so gladiators bled in the Colosseum, senators drank in their gardens, and lovers stole kisses in hidden alcoves while Rome pretended nothing had changed. But in the stillness of night, a different truth was whispered. Cults gathering beneath the city. Priests who called themselves keepers of shadows. Women whose beauty never faded, whose eyes gleamed as if they had seen centuries pass. The girls, caught in their tangle of love and jealousy, did not yet see the noose drawing tighter. Soon, the marble city that promised them everything would reveal its true face. A feast not of wine and silk, but of flesh and fear. Chapter 5. The Cult of Shadows. Beneath Rome's marble brilliance lay another city, carved in darkness. Tunnels ran under the streets, winding past ancient tombs where the air hung heavy with smoke and whispers. Few dared to walk there, except those who sought forbidden power. It was Claudia Severina who first led them down. Cloaked in black, her veil hiding more than her face, she guided Cassia through the hidden stairways beneath her villa. The walls were painted with faded gods, their eyes gouged away. The chambers flickered with torchlight, where robed figures gathered, chanting in tongues older than Rome itself. Selene and Lyra followed days later, drawn by curiosity, jealousy, and the lure of secrets whispered at banquets. There, in the bowels of the empire, they saw things that mocked the natural order. A corpse laid on a slab, pale and still. Then, with a shuddering gasp, it rose, eyes glowing faintly as the priests praised their dark mistress. Claudia's voice was a purr against Cassia's ear. "Do you see, my love? Death is not the end. It is a door, and those who dare to open it may rule beyond the reach of emperors." Cassia trembled, torn between terror and the intoxicating promise of eternity. Above ground, Rome laughed and drank, but rumors could not be silenced. More bodies vanished from their graves. A child wandered into the market, pale as ash, its mother screaming when she realized the child had been buried the week before. Senators whispered of conspiracy, generals demanded answers, and still the emperor's advisors insisted it was nothing but fear. But the women knew better. They had seen the truth in the flicker of torches beneath the earth, and with every night they spent in the cult's hidden halls, their lives grew tighter in its grip. Love, jealousy, desire. It was all being twisted into something greater, something darker. Rome was still dancing in silks and jewels, but soon it would be drowning in shadows. Chapter 6. Fire and Betrayal. Rome burned with celebration the night it finally shattered. The emperor had ordered a grand banquet in the forum to silence rumors of sickness. Torches lit the colonnades, musicians played, and dancers shimmered in gold chains. Wine spilled, laughter roared, and the women of Rome, silk and jeweled intoxicating, moved among generals and senators like goddesses among mortals. Selene, wrapped in emerald silk, clung to Marcus Aelius, her devotion now pulling her away from Lucius. His soldier's embrace was rough but steady, the kind that promised protection even as shadows grew. Lyra, bold and crimson, laughed with the prince at one table, while secretly pressing her lips to Cassia's hand under the silk-draped feast. Cassia, drawn deeper into Claudia's orbit, found herself whispering in the courtesan's ear even as Lucius's jealous eyes burned into her. Desire tangled with betrayal until no heartbeat without guilt. And then the horror came. A slave stumbled into the banquet, tray in hand, eyes rolled white. At first, laughter filled the hall, drunken jokes at his clumsiness, until he sank his teeth into a nobleman's throat. Blood sprayed across marble and screams drowned out the music. More figures followed, staggering from the shadows, bodies pale, mouths slack, hands clawing. Chaos exploded. Torches fell, curtains caught fire, and noblewomen fled as soldiers drew swords too late. Lovers were torn apart, gowns shredded in panic, jewels clattering across the stones. The stench of blood and smoke thickened until Rome's finest banquet became a battlefield. In the madness, Lucius tried to claim Cassia's hand, but she pulled back toward Claudia, eyes wide with something beyond fear, fascination. Selene wept against Marcus's chest, while Lyra, reckless even in terror, seized a blade and fought beside gladiators in a frenzy of laughter and screams. Above it all, the forum burned. Shadows twisted across the walls like specters, and the first true cry of Rome's downfall rose into the night sky, for the plague had broken its chains. And now, nothing, neither love nor power, could stop what was coming. Chapter 7. Love Among Ruins. Smoke choked the skies above Rome. The forum, once proud and gleaming, lay in ashes, its marble blackened, its statues cracked. Zombies roamed through alleys and marketplaces, tearing into the weak while soldiers and gladiators fought with swords slick with blood. Yet even in ruin, love clung stubbornly to the living. Celine, trembling but radiant in torn silk, found shelter in a half-collapsed villa with Marcus Aelius. His hands, still stained from battle, brushed tears from her cheeks, as if she were the only thing worth saving in the dying empire. "Stay with me," he whispered, his lips against her hair. And for the first time, she let go of the prince and clung to the man who had fought for her, not for power. Lyra, reckless as ever, fought like fire beside gladiators in the streets, her laughter sharp even as blood sprayed across her skin. When one nearly dragged her into the jaws of the undead, it was Cassia who pulled her free, their mouths meeting in a kiss born of terror and desire. "If the world ends," Lyra gasped, "let it end with your lips on mine." Cassia said nothing, but she did not let go. Yet Cassia's heart was torn. At night, in the safety of a ruined temple, Claudia Severina wrapped her in a cloak of velvet and whispers. "You are more than mortal flesh," Claudia purred, her hand on Cassia's chest. "With me, you will not only live, you will rule." Between Lyra's fiery devotion and Claudia's dark promise, Cassia's soul was caught in a war of passion deeper than the one raging through Rome. And in the chaos, Prince Lucius, spurned and furious, began to turn. If love would not bind the girls to him, then power would. And in his desperation, he sought allies who promised him strength beyond death. The city was crumbling, the lovers divided, but something far worse was stirring in the emperor's shadow. For in the heart of the palace, secrets waited to be revealed, secrets that would decide whether Rome would survive or fall forever. Chapter 8. The Witches of Rome. The palace smoldered, its gilded halls blackened, yet still the emperor summoned beauty and danger to his side. By torchlight, he revealed his secret weapon. Two women whose arrival sent ripples through every heart present. Morgana of Thessaly, robed in black silk threaded with gold, moved with the majesty of a queen and the menace of a predator. Her eyes glimmered with cruel knowledge as she bowed only slightly to the emperor. Beside her stood her apprentice, Selena, only 17, her hair cascading like midnight, her figure both innocent and devastatingly alluring. The men of Rome could scarcely breathe at her beauty. Even the women felt her magnetism. Selena lifted her chin, voice like honey over steel. "I can destroy the plague," she declared, her youthful face shining with a dangerous kind of hope. Cassia, Lyra, and Selene leaned forward, their hearts pulled between belief and suspicion. Could salvation wear so beautiful a face? But Morgana only smiled, a smile that concealed more than it revealed, for she whispered not of salvation, but of control. The dead cannot be destroyed. She told the emperor in secret, they can only be commanded. And so seductions unfolded in the shadows. Lucius, desperate for power, was ensnared by Selena's charm, her lips brushing his as she whispered promises of victory. Cassia, torn already between Lyra and Claudia, found herself drawn to Morgana's dark wisdom, the older woman's touch on her wrist making her shiver with forbidden desire. That night, under the crimson glow of burning temples, Selena performed her first ritual. The flames roared higher, the undead gathered, and for a heartbeat, it seemed she truly held power over them. But when she smiled, her teeth glinted too sharp, her eyes too bright, and Cassia realized with horror. Selena was not here to save Rome. She was here to crown herself in its ashes. The lovers' tangled hearts trembled on the edge of ruin, for the witches had entered their game, and with them came not salvation, but the promise of a darker reign. Chapter 9. The Veil of Seduction. By dawn, the city smelled of smoke, sweat, and death. Yet inside the emperor's private chambers, velvet curtains still swayed with a perfumed air of pleasure. Selena, draped in nothing but a translucent gown, leaned close to Prince Lucius, her fingers tracing his chest. Her beauty was a weapon sharper than any sword, her youth intoxicating, her promises a drug he could not resist. "With me," she whispered, lips brushing his ear, "you will not only survive, you will rule when the dead bow to my will." But not all were spellbound. Selene, hidden in the shadows, watched with fire in her eyes. Betrayal burned her. Lucius's hunger for Selena cut deeper than any blade. Yet when Marcus Aelius found her trembling later, he kissed her lips with rough devotion, vowing she was not lost. Even in despair, passion ignited. Meanwhile, in the ruins of a temple, Morgana moved like a serpent through the women's circle. Cassia, curious and wounded, leaned too close, listening as the older witch spoke of forbidden powers. Morgana's hand, warm and commanding, lingered on Cassia's neck. "You are more than their pawn, child. With me, your heart can be fire, your touch can be death." Cassia's body shivered, not from fear alone. And then the horror revealed itself. That night, Selena called a gathering by the fountains. Before nobles and soldiers, she lifted her arms and spoke in tongues, summoning fire in the air. The undead paused, their snarls silenced. For a heartbeat, hope surged. But then Selena's face twisted with a smile too cruel, and the dead turned, not away, but toward the living, obeying her whispered command. Screams shattered the square as once loyal soldiers fell beneath gnashing teeth. Lucius laughed beside Selena, believing himself untouchable, even as the city crumbled. Among the flames, the women realized the truth. Selena was no savior. She was a queen of death in the making. And Morgana? Perhaps the true hand guiding it all. But the witches had miscalculated one thing. Love, tangled and desperate, can be as dangerous as any curse. Chapter 10. The Crown of Ashes. Rome was no longer a city. It was a graveyard lit by fire, a kingdom of the dead. In the emperor's palace, marble floors ran slick with blood, and the last survivors huddled beneath shattered statues of forgotten gods. At the center stood Selena, radiant and terrible, her beauty glowing against the carnage. Draped in crimson silk, she raised her arms, commanding the undead like a queen before her army. Beside her, Lucius laughed wildly, drunk on borrowed power, his lips stained with wine and blood. "Behold," he cried, "Rome shall be reborn. My Rome! Her Rome!" But Morgana moved silently behind them, her amber eyes alight. She had never meant for Selena to rule, only to serve. With a gesture, she unleashed her own spell, tearing at her apprentice's command. Selena screamed, her body writhing as the dead wavered between mistress and master. The women who had loved and lost now rose against them. Cassia, torn between Claudia, Lyra, and Morgana's temptations, seized a fallen sword. Lyra, bloodied but unbroken, stood beside her, whispering, "If we die, let it be together." And Selene, clutching Marcus's hand, stepped forward with defiance burning through her tears. The battle was not only of swords and claws, but of hearts. Selena's gaze found Cassia one last time, pleading, seductive, desperate. For a heartbeat, Cassia wavered, then her blade struck. Blood splashed across marble, and Selena's scream echoed like a lover's curse. But Morgana smiled too soon. As Selena fell, her power did not fade. It poured into the earth, into the air, into Rome itself. The dead shrieked as if possessed by her spirit, their frenzy uncontrollable, their hunger eternal. And then came the final twist. Lucius, in horror, realized the truth. Selena had never been meant to destroy the plague. She was its vessel, its seed. By killing her, Rome had crowned her as its eternal queen. As flames devoured the city and the undead rose in endless waves, the last lovers embraced among ruins, their passion burning brighter than the fires of hell. For love could survive the plague, but Rome could not.
In the shadows of the night, where the moonlight glows, the zombies lurking everywhere, that's how the story goes.
Epilogue: The Last Secret of Rome. The fires of Rome smoldered for weeks, choking the skies with ash. Statues lay toppled, temples crumbled, and the Tiber ran dark with blood. Yet among the ruins, whispers lingered. Some claimed to see Selena's shadow walking through the flames, her beauty untouched, her voice commanding the dead with eternal hunger. Others swore Morgana's laughter echoed in the catacombs, weaving new spells, waiting for another empire to rise. But the truest stories were softer, more human. Lovers who clung together in their final hours, Cassia and Lyra's kiss among the burning gardens, Selene weeping into Marcus's arms, Claudia vanishing into the night with secrets unspoken. Love and betrayal, passion and despair, woven into the ashes of an empire that believed itself eternal. Rome did not fall to barbarians, nor to fire, nor even to its emperor's greed. It fell to something darker, a secret history, hidden in the shadows, erased by time. The plague was not an accident. It was a crown passed from hand to hand, from witch to apprentice, from Rome to the world beyond. And perhaps it never truly died. For even now, in whispers carried by wind and ink, the tale returns. In every city, every empire, the question burns. When the dead rise again, who will command them? This was the zombie apocalypse in ancient Rome, only on the Zombie Story Zone. If you crave more hidden histories, forbidden romances, and Gothic horrors, subscribe now. The next untold secret is already rising from the grave.
Grin and laughter, it's a crazy mix. With every twist and turn, we'll learn some new tricks. So grab your friends, let's dive right in the Zombie Story Zone. Let the fun begin. Grin and laughter, it's a crazy mix. With every twist and turn, we'll learn new tricks. So grab your friends, let's dive right in the Zombie Story Zone. Let the fun begin. And laughter, it's a crazy mix. With every twist and turn, we'll learn some new tricks. So grab your friends, let's dive right in the Zombie Story Zone. Let the fun begin.